Well, I want to welcome everyone to Iowa City Noon Rotary. It's wonderful to see all your faces today. I'm Eric Weiler, your president this year. We start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could take a second and unmute yourself, and we'll put a screenshot of the American flag up here momentarily. So if you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
the United States of America
and
and
to
to the republic
for
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty, and justice for all. Now, what I thought we would do today, we're celebrating Veterans Day today. And I thought it would be great to recognize and thank all of our Rotarians who are veterans. So just encourage any of you who are veterans, if you could just click raise hand, we'd love to be able to public acknowledge and thank you for your service. And I'll watch and see if we have any. Looks like Bill Oglesby is waving. Thank you, Bill, and James Scott, Ray and Linda Mustin, Tom Cook. So just wanted to take a second, just give you a virtual round of applause and thank you for your service on this Veterans Day. Steve Wolken as well too. Thank you, Steve. And now we'll go to our annual weekly Zoom tips with Devin.
Yeah, thanks, President Eric. You all know the drill. You can check out your view, make sure you're looking at either all the other smiling faces of fellow Rotarians or focusing on the speaker. If you focus in on the speaker and there are slides up, there's a little slider in your screen. You can see more of the slides or more of the speaker, depending on what's going on. Use that raise hand feature, and that's if you go into the reactions tab, you can find raise hand there, and then a bunch of little emojis like the party emoji, et cetera, et cetera. Saxophone emoji, which is clearly the best emoji. So keep that in your back pocket at all times. And then finally, I will just say, if you haven't updated your Zoom client lately, I encourage you to do so because that'll keep you as secure as possible and keep everything up to date. And to do that, just go to their website and then find the spot where you can download the latest client, install that sucker, and you'll be as safe as possible. Back to you, President Eric.
Great, thank you, Devin. Now we're on to introductions. We love to see all the new faces who join us each Thursday. So if you're a visiting Rotarian or you're a Rotarian who has a guest, or maybe you somehow got this link and wondered, where am I and what is Rotary? Click raise hand so we can call and recognize you. Looks like we might not have any today. I know usually we have a few. We do have a new member we're going to induct here, and we'll introduce him here in a few minutes. So we'll go on to announcements. If you have an announcement, please click raise hand. And while you're doing that, one of my goals as your club president is communications. I want to make sure everyone is aware of our great upcoming speakers and how we're involved in volunteering in our community. So make sure you look every Monday morning. I'm sending an email out. It has our upcoming speakers, not just for our club, but for all the other area clubs. And it has some of our volunteer opportunities and ways to get involved. So make sure you're looking at that. And I know, Devin, you've got an announcement for us.
Yeah, so a number of you were involved with this. We had an event back in October around World Polio Day to help with the continued eradication of polio. There were only 2 wild cases so far this year. So we're getting really, really close. But even after that last wild case is gone, it's going to take another 3 years of vigilance and continued immunizations to make sure that that wild polio is completely eradicated. And so the local clubs, well, the Iowa City area Rotary clubs got together on World Polio Day, a couple of days before actually, and we did some fundraising and got together outdoors, had a great time. And between donations at the event, a matching donation from Mark Ruggeberg, additional donations made directly to the foundation, some from you in the club here, a really generous Gates Foundation match. As always, we raised $17,373 for the eradication of polio. So a round of applause to everyone who donated, supported that. Let's see, if you multiply that, what do you multiply it by, Eric? How much do we give our speaker every week, or give in honor of our speaker every week?
I believe it's $10, which provides 70 polio vaccinations. So that's another, $500 a year.
Right, so so another 119,000 vaccinations or something like that, if you want to do that math. So nice work, everybody. We're getting there. I just wanted to relay that good news.
Great. And Devin, thank you for your leadership with helping to organize the event. I know I saw you there. It was a chilly evening and you were there, one of the last ones putting everything away. And so thank you for that. Another announcement, our longtime club secretary who passed earlier this year, Eleanor Mcclelland, we celebrated her life, if you remember, about a month ago during our Rotary Moment of Positivity. Eleanor's service is going to be this afternoon, and it's going to be at Parkview Church. I think most of us know where Parkview at. Parkview is kind of the intersection of Dubuque Street and Foster Road. And at 2 o'clock, the family's having visitation. And at 3 o'clock is going to be her funeral service. So if you're interested in supporting Eleanor or her family this afternoon, visitation 2 o'clock, funeral 3 o'clock at Parkview Church. We get to induct a new member today, which is always exciting. And our new member was sponsored by John Colshaw. And I'd like to invite John to unmute himself and to introduce us to our new member today. John?
Eric, thank you so much. And hi, everybody. So today it's really my pleasure to welcome and introduce my colleague, Russ Ganem. Russ is the Associate Provost and Dean of International Programs here at the UI. And Russ is an internationalist and, in my opinion, is really perfectly set up to become a Rotarian. And I know that based on his both his scholarly and his professional interests, as well as his commitment to service, which I know is right there along with the rest of us here in the group. Russ was one of the first faculty members that I met when I came to Iowa 8.5 years ago. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce him today as a new member of our club. Thank you.
Great. And yeah, John, thank you so much for bringing Russ to our club. One of our goals this year is membership. Every member bring one. And with Russ, it'll be some new energy and it'll strengthen our impact on the community. So thank you. So Russ, you have been approved for membership in this club because we believe you to be a worthy representative of your vocation, interested in the ideals of Rotary, and willing to do your share in translating those ideals into action. Rotary is non-political, non-discriminatory, and non-denominational. Our impact starts with our members, people who work tirelessly with their clubs to solve some of the most difficult challenges in their communities. Our efforts are supported by Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation, which turns our donations into grants that fund the work of our members and partners, both locally and around the globe. Russ, when you become a member of Iowa City Noon Rotary, you will be joining over 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. Rotary International uses the term JET to describe what we do so well: join leaders, exchange ideas, and take action. Your challenge as a new Rotarian, Russ, is to get involved, join at least one of our committees, and bring guests and introduce them to Rotary. I now invite our members to provide a virtual round of applause for our newest member, Russ Ganem. And Russ, we want to invite you to unmute yourself and to say a few words.
Yes, first of all, thank you everyone for this warm welcome, and special thanks to John, my good friend, good colleague, whom I've known ever since I arrived here at Iowa 10 years ago. I just want to say that my commitment to globalism is sincere and is a lifelong commitment. As Barb mentioned earlier, I've already been helping out with one of the district committees that focuses on scholarships. I think there's a lot more that I can do and can contribute along these lines. Just to give you a little bit of history, personal history with Rotary, I gave a talk to a local Rotary club in France in 1984. Where some friends that I had in a little town called Pithiviers, which is between Paris and Orléans, sort of in the central of France, and then center of France, where they were Rotarians. They invited me to speak. I talked a little bit about, my background, my education, my career goals. Had a wonderful experience. These people invited me into their homes and made some lifelong friendships. through Rotary back almost 40 years ago. I had a cousin who benefited from 2 Rotary scholarships. My own daughter went to the World Affairs Seminar 3 years ago now. So it is definitely time for me to give back to Rotary, and I very much look forward to this opportunity. It really is actually more than an opportunity, it's a privilege. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Russ. And Russ, when I think about your service at the University of Iowa and kind of international global learning, you might already be aware of this, but we have a group of Rotarians who go to Jicotepec, Mexico, and they help children at an orphanage every year. And we have another group of Rotarians that partners with the University of Iowa to go to Central America and do some of the cleft palate surgery. So a lot of great opportunities to get involved internationally.
Right,
So,
I definitely want to engage with both of those groups, both as a Rotarian and in my role as Associate Provost and Dean of International Programs.
yep, that's great. So, yep, thank you, Russ, and welcome. We look excited to when we're able to meet you in person or see you around town.
Thank you again.
Yep. So with that, we've got a great program today that I'm excited for everyone to hear. And I'd like to introduce Rotarian and Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague to introduce our speaker to us. Mayor Teague.
Well, hello, everyone, and to our veterans. We really do appreciate your service, so thanks for all you do. I'm super excited to introduce our next presenter for today. Is Shelley Mahari, who is actually a Rotarian. She's the president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Johnson County. She joined the Community Foundation in 2018 after spending 5 years as an associate director at the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine. Prior to her time in Muscatine, Shelley worked at UIHC for 15 years, holding various administrative roles, including the Director of Patient Relations for the Hospital and College of Medicine. She is a member of the Eastern Iowa Planning Giving Council, member of the Cedar Rapids Area State Planning Council, past CEO liaison to the Iowa Council of Foundation, and a board member of the Eastern Iowa Association of Fundraising Professionals. Shelley is married to Michael Mahari, a University of Iowa family medicine physician, and together they have 2 children. Their son Brevin is a freshman at Purdue University, and he's studying cybersecurity, and their daughter Sabrina is a freshman at City High School. Please welcome Shelley Mahari.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Veterans Day. So having that introduction, 2 things come to mind, which is one, I have to say that I have a college freshman. And the other thing that this Iowa grad has to say is my son is a Boilermaker. He likes to text on a regular basis and calls himself the Spoiler Makers, as you have seen this football season. So yes, it's a interesting time at our house for sure. It looks like we're going to have a little bit of extra time today. I was reflecting upon last week's presentation, which was John Lohman. And one of the things for the Corridor Business Journal, and one of the things that just resonated with me is he spent just a quick moment sort of explaining how he got to the position where he is in. And so I would like to take a moment just to do the same for you. Good fortune and wonderful opportunities have followed me all through my career. As a student at the University of Iowa, my freshman year, I fell into a position getting a student job working at UIHC. I worked at the registration desk, which was the big command module right at the middle of the hospital. And in that role, I learned the hospital and learned about the good work that was happening there, and was able to really, from that student position, start a career that I'm so grateful for. And 2 things particularly came out of that work. One, I fell in love with the work of being a patient advocate, and that's what I was able to do for a number of years, and eventually took leadership positions that took me a little bit away from the patient experience. In fact, the higher I got in my role, eventually I was the director of patient relations for the enterprise. The staff would joke that, well, if the sky is falling, call Shelley, which was basically, kind of the motto that happened. And I quickly discovered that the higher up in my position I got, the worse the issues I was addressing, and regularly felt, there is so much good and joy happening in this hospital. I'm not able to see it in this role. And a serendipitous moment happened when I got to start working on a grateful patient program at a combination between the hospital and the UI Center for Advancement. And that's where I fell in love with philanthropy. I saw all the good that could happen between healthcare and then this grateful patient experience. And along the same time, I also had a wonderful opportunity at UIHC, which was a patient complaint led me to my husband, Michael. So the complaint wasn't about my husband, but he was the director of the residency program for the University of Iowa's Family Medicine Residency Program, and the issue was regarding a resident. But our paths crossed over a patient complaint. So I have two very grateful moments of my time at UIHC because of those two things. And it led me to my work in community foundations through my hometown of Muscatine, which I'm really grateful for. So I just wanted to share those two kind of pieces of how I ended up getting connected with philanthropy and community foundations, having a background in healthcare, which I'm so grateful for, to spend my days helping good people give back to communities that they care so very much about. So today, I'll be talking with you about the Community Foundation. I do have a few slides for you, but then we'll shut those down and we'll get back to talking together. So let me grab those quick for us. And we'll see if I can get everything to work properly. It'll take just a minute, I think. So I'm kind of froze on a slide, so I'm trying to move this slide here. Here we go. Can you see my blue slide there? Perfect. It's like it takes a minute. So I know my good friend Robin Hepker is on this call, and Robin helps us annually with our annual meeting, or our annual report, excuse me. And every year we take moments to reflect about the theme of the year, the sentiment that we're experiencing in our community. And this year's theme is really all the ways you care. And this is particularly sentimental for my friends at Rotary. I feel like giving this presentation is really a coming home. I give a presentation to all of our local Rotary clubs, but being able to chat with all of you is especially important to me, as I'm a member of this club and see regularly all the good work that happens in our community because of Rotary. Whether it's planting trees in the community, doing food drives, to really utilizing your financial means to come alongside nonprofits to support them with grant needs or others, is just really inspirational. So I want to give kudos on behalf of all of our nonprofit sector here in Johnson County to Rotary, to this Rotary Club, and to all clubs for all the good work that you are all doing. It's really, really wonderful. So I get asked a lot about what exactly is a community foundation and kind of how does it work. And in general, a community foundation is its own standalone 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization, really with three main purposes. One is we work with donors to help them create philanthropic plans through what we call funds. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but creating funds that do specific charitable work that meets their philanthropic goals. We also provide grants to nonprofit organizations. Those might be grants that we direct from funds that we administer, and we have an annual grants program, but also we're again working with those donors to connect them to needs in the community, whether it's learning about capital campaigns that a nonprofit might be having, or crucial community needs that are taking place. We can come alongside donors to help advise them, or just come alongside them to let them tell us their interests, and we can help connect grants in that way. And then finally, a role of being a community leader, being able to leverage our resources and our ability as a nonprofit organization to step in quickly in times of need to address community needs and create creative solutions to engage the community philanthropically to provide support. This is a quick snapshot, so I'm kind of giving you a little advanced information that's going to be coming out in our annual report here shortly. But I share this information because we truly are your community foundation. And so in the last fiscal year, for the very first time, your community foundation crossed $50 million of charitable assets under management. And when you think about those assets, you can think that every dollar that's there has some sort of good tied to it, some sort of charitable intent to drive our community forward, to see passion and vision move forward in the community, but also be preserved for generations to come through our endowment funds. We have been able to grant since our inception. So 2020 was our 20th anniversary year, and that was a moment, 2020 anniversary year, but no better way to celebrate the importance of having a community foundation than the ways that we were able to step forward to support the community during those times. So we've granted $21 million out of the community foundation. We hold 252 funds now. And last fiscal year, we received $6.1 million of donations that came into the community foundation. That is double from the year before. And so I share that with you as a testament of the giving, generous, caring, philanthropic culture and community that we have right here at home. And so when you add the total assets plus what's already gone out, the community foundation has such pride that $70 million of good has taken place and is taking place through our organization. So when you hear that asset total of $50.3 million, I want you to think about it like a pie. That pie is the sum, that's the sum of the pie, but the pie is broken up into many little slivers, which represents the funds that we hold. And there are many types of funds. If you have a charitable interest, I guarantee we can find a fund that can fulfill your charitable goals and put together long-term giving plans if that's something that you're interested in. So we've got family philanthropy funds. Those might be funds that are started that also have a successor generation that would advise those funds. We offer donor advised funds. Designated funds, those are funds that are created where the grant coming out of the fund annually is designated for a specific nonprofit organization or specific type of field of interest type work. Maybe it's education or arts and culture. We hold a number of agency nonprofit endowment funds. One example would be Shelter House has their endowment fund held at the Community Foundation, and many nonprofits do as well. We can offer scholarship funds. The scholarship funds that we offer are would be ones that would be specific to students across Johnson County. So we're able to step in and offer that broad scholarship opportunity across multiple school districts if that was the desire of a donor. We have planned giving funds. We also call those legacy funds. These are a great way to set up charitable plans through your will or estate that during your living years, you'll know exactly how the transaction will occur after your passing and how the funds will be used. And it's a great way to kind of solidify some estate plans that you might want to be creating. We also offer corporate and business giving funds, like corporate advised funds. Just last week, Skogman Realty awarded from their business fund a grant to a nonprofit organization called Definitely Dogs. They raised over $25,000 through a golf event and awarded that money to that organization that provides service animals to veterans, so appropriate on Veterans Day. And the final type of fund that we hold are fiscal agent funds. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but those are the special kind of funds where the Community Foundation leverages our 501c3 tax exempt status to drive community good and projects. The slide there in blue, which I might be cut off a little bit depending on where you have your tile of speakers, is all of the ways that you can give to funds at the Community Foundation. That can be cash, securities, gifts of grain, timely during the fall harvest season. Also real estate, personal property, IRA rollovers, charitable gift annuities, insurance, real estate plan, life insurance plans, and retirement assets. So I will just leave you with gifting doesn't have to be made in cash. And gifting doesn't have to be made during your lifetime. There are lots of scenarios that we can come up with to create a charitable giving plan for you that might not involve an immediate cash transaction. There's lots that can happen there. One of the cornerstone pieces that makes Iowa Community Foundations unique, and there are 17 community foundations located in Iowa. What makes us unique is that we're one of only 3 that is a standalone community foundation dedicated to just one county. So for example, the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation actually covers 22 different counties in Iowa. So their staff manages many counties, but we're dedicated to charitable giving and enhancement right here in Johnson County. And a specific program that's only available to donors who give through community foundations when they give to endowment funds is the ability to get access to what's called the Endow Iowa tax credit. So back in 2004, the Iowa legislature created a program that incentivized donors that if you gave to an endowment fund, made a gift to an endowment fund, held at an Iowa community foundation, and you were an Iowa taxpayer, you could get access to a 25% Endow Iowa tax credit. Today, there's $6 million of credits that are appropriated to this program annually. And the 25% tax credit is on the gift. So if you make a gift of $100, you would be eligible for a $25 tax credit. And the difference between the deduction and the tax credit is it really does have a bottom line impact on your tax filing. So if you're getting a refund, it'll increase. If you owe taxes, it'll reduce. So it's a great program. The program is very popular. So the $6 million of credits does go faster and faster each year. And so myself and staff will be happy to help you work through that process. But in general, if this year's credits are exhausted, donors are able to roll over to be in line for the next year's credit. So you kind of be on a waiting list. For this year, we're even in a unique situation. So if you gave a gift today, which November 11th, you would receive a tax deductible gift receipt for the actual gift in this tax year, but you'll be on the waiting list for 2023's tax credit. So 2022 has already been reserved. That can tell you how popular giving through community foundations is and how popular donors are finding the Endow Iowa tax credit. So always happy to chat with anyone offline about that as well. I mentioned briefly to you about fiscal agency funds, and this is the space where having a community foundation serving our area can be so important. It's when we use our 501c3 tax exempt status to start funds for the purpose of betterment in the community or emerging needs in the community. And here are a couple examples of those fiscal agency funds. So we started the Emergency Response Fund in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which allowed an easy avenue for donors to be able to give to the Emergency Response Fund. Within 1 week, we were kicking out grants to nonprofit organizations to help them with PPE equipment, with staffing needs, with food needs, you name it. We were pushing needed dollars right out the door. And when we think about our national response, right? The government's response, there's always a gap between when federal funds are available or even state funds are available and then, when there is an issue. And it is the good work of our local residents, our local nonprofit organizations who immediately fill in that gap in between to get that work done. So thank you to all of our community members who helped in that way so quickly. And also this Rotary Club also supported grants that were received through our Emergency Response Fund. And partnering together just made those dollars stretch even further. So we couldn't be happier to be a partner. We also started a fund that was called the Neighborhood Nest Fund. As you may remember, all of our school district went to an exclusively online situation. And that created some real barriers for some families who didn't have Wi-Fi access, who didn't immediately have computers available or cell phones. And so neighborhood nests were set up as these locations where students could go during the day and their families could get assistance with learning how to log in remotely and get tutoring assistance. So a fund was established to help get those projects up and running. Something close to our heart, our Rotary group, hopefully is all familiar with the Rotary Kerber Heart Safe Fund. This charitable fund is providing financial assistance for AED devices and community education. We want to be a heart safe community. I know Dr. Merchant's on this call. I saw him earlier. So a great point of pride for the Community Foundation to be aligned with such an important project. The Food with Love project was also started. That was an emergency relief food creation endeavor that paired idle restaurants that were not open, converting them into emergent food production locations. And volunteers came, picked up the food, delivered them to a number of nonprofit organizations that had displaced clients all over the city needing freshly prepared meals. So that was a great project. And another is the Johnson County Entrepreneur Match Fund. So this was started long before COVID, but allowed for businesses to come to the Community Foundation and help provide small grants to immigrant and women-owned businesses to launch in the area. So we were able to start a fund for that. So just a couple of examples of how the Community Foundation can use our ability to do community good. So I want to leave you with that idea, that spark. If there's a project or program or need in the community, and you feel like, I think our community would like to give to this charitably, but we need a partner to make that happen. Please always think of the Community Foundation. We're always happy to work through those pieces. There's just a couple other pieces that I wanted to share with you are in regards to charitable giving. So the Community Foundation is a champion for all charitable giving, no matter what the organization, the sector, if your interests are arts or animals or education, you name it, there is a place for you through the Community Foundation. And part of our work is ensuring that everyone knows how to give and how to give smartly. There are a couple opportunities right now as we look towards the end of the year that I want to make sure everyone is aware of. The CARES Act provided some legislation that incentivized charitable giving in response to COVID. It began in 2020 and it's been extended into 2021 and enhanced a little. So the majority of donors now, majority of taxpayers give, they actually take a standard deduction. So they don't itemize their taxes like we used to. So it takes an increased amount of charitable giving in order to get above the standard deduction. But this CARES Act allows for an above the line charitable deduction that is aside from the standard deduction for individuals and couples filing jointly. So if you give $300 for an individual or $600 for up to $600 for couples filing jointly, you can take advantage of that above the line credit. So again, it has direct impact to the bottom line of what you owe on your taxes. So it's a great opportunity to get incentivized for charitable giving. It does need to be cash gifts. So, really writing checks, those kind of things are the best way to keep track of those things. But that's a great way of giving. Another piece that is important for donors to be thinking about is gifting appreciated securities right now. I think we've saw the market again has hit new records. So if there are individuals who have appreciated securities, so you bought it $100 and now it's at $150, let's say, that's appreciated. So it's gained value. If you gift those shares from your account directly to a nonprofit, so say the community foundation, you bypass the gain, that capital gain, and you get to claim the full value of the shares at the time that they were received by the charity. So a great giving opportunity for you to save on some taxes and get full credit for the amount of those appreciated securities. And then also great opportunity for anyone who has retirement accounts, IRA rollovers. The community foundation can accept the qualified charitable distributions, which you are eligible to make through IRA accounts. And then also required minimum distributions can also come directly to the community foundation. That's allowing the recipient or the holder of the retirement accounts to actually bypass that income for tax purposes and be able to claim that full or get credit for the full amount of the gift that they're making to the nonprofit. We are in a unique space as well that donors can transfer a lump sum to the community foundation, and we have the ability to break it up amongst multiple organizations if you wish. So if we have multiple funds that you'd like to give to, we can break that up and put your gifts into those funds. And if you even have organizations that you want to give to in Johnson County, we can also use those funds to distribute funds outside of the community foundation as well. Again, our space is to make charitable giving as accessible and easy for our residents as possible. And so we try to do our very best to work together to make whatever gifting plans you have a reality. And then finally, we've got our logo is 3 arches and 3 bridges, and it represents our work with donors, nonprofits, and the community. And one of the greatest comments that I get to hear from people now is when they say something like, I didn't know the community foundation could do that, or I didn't know the community foundation could help out in that way. And to me, that's the greatest point of pride in being able to leverage this wonderful resource of community for greater good. So it's our sincere honor to be a partner to so many nonprofit organizations, to get to know so many of you as donors as well. I see so many friendly faces here, and just being a steward of your kindness and caring in the community. That's kind of the wrap up of my presentation. I'm going to stop there. And if anyone has any questions or thoughts that they want to share, I would welcome that.
Yep. Thank you so much, Shelley. And if anyone has a question, please raise your hand and we'll call on you to ask it. And Shelley, you touched on it, but I just wanted to highlight, we had the great partnership, as you mentioned, last year with our Rotary Club and the Community Foundation. Our president last year, Barb Thomas, had a great idea. Knowing that our community was really hurting with COVID and the pandemic, and a lot of our nonprofit friends were struggling, we took $30,000 out of our Rotary reserves, donated it to the Community Foundation. And I believe it was health and human service agencies that we were kind of looking at. And Shelley and her staff were wonderful with sharing those applications. We had a committee of Rotarians review them and make recommendations. And I believe all said we supported 8 to 10 organizations to the tune of $30,000 total. So something that you could be proud of that your Rotary Club did last year. And I see Joe Hughes, you have a question, Joe?
Yeah, Shelley, thanks for the presentation today. Always enjoy seeing your smiling face. So over 50 million in assets is amazing. You guys have done a great job. Is that something that continues to grow? It looks like you said that you brought in 21 like just over 6 million in donations and gave out about 2 million in grants. Is that normal? Is like 2/3 of the money going to grow the foundation, or what's the plan with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the bulk of the monies that we hold are endowed funds, and endowed funds only allow for 5% of the balance to go out as grants each year. So that's why there's always a discrepancy between, assets held and the money's going out the door, because that's how by design it was created. So the idea is that The monies are held at the Community Foundation. They're invested for the long term. And then, only a certain amount goes out from the fund each year.
Cool, thank you.
Great. And I will also mention, I think I neglected this, but I did have a note. We have an amazing 21 member board of directors made up of a diverse and connected group of Johnson County community members. Some of them are on this call today. Even if I see my friendly face, Tita Kaufman's on the call. She's a former board member. Our work is made possible because we have such a wonderful board of directors, and that trust and credibility lends itself to that board, because it's not lost on us that many of our funds are here to be at the Community Foundation forever. And the donors are entrusting the board of directors to oversee and ensure that their wishes are fulfilled long into the future. And so it's an honor and an obligation that we don't take lightly.
Great. LaDonna, you had a question?
It's actually a comment first. This year, the I Can Read Songs Project was not able to hold its Literacy Champions Party because of COVID restrictions and fear of spread. And so the Community Foundation of Johnson County partnered with Rotary this year and supported gifting all of those materials to our schools. So I'm just amazed at what great partners the Community Foundation is to everyone. And then I do have a question. This may be a little simple, but what if one of us wanted to create a fund, designated fund, whatever fund, what would the process look like?
Well, we will just, it's really simple. We'll just chat together about what your charitable interests are. We do a screen test to make sure that it's a type of activity that is charitable in nature, that would benefit the community. We do a little bit of screening, and then we talk about how you would want to fund that work. Talk about what type of gifts that you would want to make, and then we just put together a fund agreement. We can do that all over email, and we just basically execute the fund agreement, and you can fund it with assets, and then that's where your team at the Community Foundation takes over, ensuring that we fulfill your wishes.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions at all for Shelley? Shelley, I know, speaking of your team, you guys really run an efficient ship. I was on the website the other day for Greater Cedar Rapids Community Foundation. They have 20 employees now, and I believe you just have 4.
Yeah,
so you guys are doing a lot of heavy lifting, but what are your plans, Shelley, the next 5 to 10 years strategically, adding staff, any new initiatives that you'd like to see come to fruition?
You would think that I had teed Eric up for these questions in advance,
No.
but I really didn't. So we're really excited. The Community Foundation is going to kick off a strategic planning activity here coming up in 2021 to really flesh out those goals. Really honing in on the value that the Community Foundation has in supporting the community. And as the Community Foundation grows, and so you remember, I'm part of a network of community foundations across the country, some of which, have $1 billion of assets. The way that they're able to leverage their assets for community good inspires me every day. And so as our Community Foundation grows, would love to see us being able to step into leverage our assets for community betterment and, be a convener in important conversations happening in the community.
Yeah, and Shelley and I didn't coordinate any of these being fellow fundraisers. Sometimes we kind of think, and Devin would agree, kind of along the same lines. So
yeah, I would say that I wish that my team was on the call with me today, but it is a holiday for the Community Foundation. We tend to follow banking holidays. So my team has a day of rest and recovery at home today, but Shirley Fleeler was our longtime Chief Financial Officer, and she recently retired. Julie Yoder has taken over. Julie is a longtime U.S. Bank employee in the trust department. We're just delighted to have her on board. Many of you may have already met Ellie Moore. Ellie is our Director of Grant Making, was recently named the Quarter Business Journal's Emerging Woman of Influence. I know, we're just so delighted. So I'm surrounded by amazing women in my workplace on a daily basis.
Devin, I see you have a question.
Yeah, you got a lot of great things going for you. I'm curious, what kind of challenges do you see coming here in the next couple of years for maybe community foundations in general, or for you guys specifically?
Yeah, you know, there's, well, you never know what the economic climate might be. And I think we're still living in this moment where we're not sure what the economy is going to be doing. You know, our assets, majority of them are invested. So we are tied to volatility. You know, we hedge against it, right? We have, you know, 40% of assets are fixed and 60% in general are exposed to equities. But, you know, volatility in the market plays a factor. You know, we just saw the inflation numbers come out, like 6.3% inflation that just happened, you know, in the month of October. That plays into donors' ability or their feeling to be able to give. And, you know, we're talking about the donors who, you know, might be making small gifts to a number of organizations because they care deeply about the community. Not necessarily donors who are making philanthropic, tax advantaged, you know, type of giving plans. So that's the important type of giving that can really hurt smaller nonprofits' bottom line. So looking closely at that. Other things we're looking at nationwide are in regards to donor advised funds. There may be some legislation that might come down later years regulating donor advised funds a little bit more. Currently, donor advised funds don't have any payout restrictions in terms of how much needs to be spent from a donor advised fund or in what timeline a donor has to give away their monies. So there may be some legislation there, but you know, I will say that the piece that community foundations play in the world of donor advised funds is extremely small. You know, there's really big financial institutions that are holding the bulk of donor advised funds. These are Fidelities and Schwab's, and they're lobbying hard to keep things exactly as they are. So, but our Senator Chuck Grassley actually drafted the legislation to make some changes. So it's kind of coming close to home. So we're keeping a close eye on that.
And Shelley, thank you so much for giving us an update on the Community Foundation. And it really struck me when you said it's not the balance sheet, it's not $50 million in assets. Every dollar is changing a life and lifting up our community. So thanks to you and your team for the great work that you're doing in Johnson County.
Thanks all. I'm such a proud Rotary member. Thank you all.
And Shelley, in honor of your program today, we will make a donation to the Rotary Polio Plus program, and that'll result in 70 polio vaccinations in your honor around the world. So thank you again. Our program next week is Jan Jensen. Jan is the associate head coach for the University of Iowa women's basketball team. She's also really involved with the American Heart Association. And if you haven't heard her speak before, which most of you probably have, she has a very inspirational message. So hopefully everyone can join us next Thursday at noon to hear Jan Jensen. And we conclude our meetings with the Rotary four-way test. We'll put that up here in a second on a slide. If everyone could please unmute and join me in the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it
fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you guys again next Thursday.